the conflict between Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon. For more on the latest developments there, let's head to Beirut to speak to the journalist Laith Marouf. Mr. Marouf, thank you very much indeed for talking to us. Let's start, first of all, with that rather depressing news that we got earlier, that 3 journalists were killed. I think it was in the town of Hezbollah, and several others wounded in an Israeli attack. What more can you tell us about that attack?
This was a compound of chalets that was hosting journalists from the Arabic region, a row of 7 different chalets, and the United Nations UNIFIL force was given the coordinates, which means all the parties in the conflict had the exact location, and this is where these journalists have been broadcasting live reports for weeks now from all these major stations in the region. And clearly the missiles were directed at the chalet that hosts the journalists of Al Mayadeen television. It's the largest pan-Arabic television station, news television station in the region that is against the Israeli occupation. And this comes after a day after the Zionists also bombarded an office for Al Mayadeen television in Beirut, the capital. This follows also last week an attack on buildings beside 2 major stations that are Yemeni and Bahraini that have their offices here, and their offices were destroyed, although the building was not attacked. Overall, it's clear the Zionists are, as they are doing in Gaza, where they're purposefully targeting journalists to hide the realities of their military failures and their genocidal actions. We can see here in Lebanon, this is now going to become the norm, and it should be a warning to all journalists on the planet when it's an open season on journalists like this, that this could become the reality on all war fronts.
And did this bombing attack come with any warning at all before it struck? I mean, I'm wondering whether those journalists had any chance at all of escape.
They had no chance of escape. There was no warning. And again, the building chalet compound is a structure that the United Nations UNIFIL force knows, and this is the normal position where all the journalists are housed in the region, far away from the front. So there's no reason for their targeting, except the bloodthirsty actions that the Zionists have shown us, in Gaza, and now here in Lebanon. We have the highest number of journalists killed in any battlefield in recorded history, and so this is more journalists killed in Gaza and Lebanon over the last year than the compounded number of journalists in any world war. So we are seeing beyond a genocide that is intended to kill all Palestinians or all Lebanese in general, there is a specific form of genocide directed towards the journalistic body of workers in the region. And it's all because the Zionists really want to control the narrative and erase fact and reality and make us live on a different plane that erases their war crimes.
And I mean, are you any clearer about why Israel chooses to warn of some of its missile attacks and not others? Because I mean, when Israel strikes without warning, sometimes in a densely populated residential area, I mean, the human cost can be indiscriminate and terrible.
You see, the Israelis use the occasional alarming or alerting some targets, telling people in a building that their building is going to be attacked, they use that as actually part of the war campaign. It's the act of terrorizing the residents of that building and making them run away. And then all the residents around in any other building around it that are scared the rubble is going to hit their building, they also run away. So even that supposed, act of patience or being more precise in reality is part of the wider campaign of terrorizing the indigenous populations of Lebanon and Palestine into what we heard before during your broadcast, Ben Giver talk about, which the Zionists want. What the Zionists want is total surrender of the indigenous Palestinians and Lebanese and the Arabs and Arabic people in general. Not only surrender, but also to outright prostrate themselves and say that there is such a thing as a chosen people, and that these Jewish settlers from Europe are more supreme and that we are less than them, and that they and their interpretation of this false God that they have that allows them to kill, steal, and covet their neighbors' belongings, the opposite of what our prophet Moses had actually preached, is the true religion. They want the Palestinians, whether they're Muslim, Christian, or Jewish, to abandon their own history and interpretation of the oneness of God and humanity to this idea that there is a chosen people and that we are not the indigenous people of the land. And that's not going to happen. This is why we see a total genocide. There's an impossibility for the Zionists to force the Palestinians and the Arabs to do such a thing. And thus, the only choice in front of this fascist colony to continue is genocide.
It's interesting, isn't it, that Beirut, the capital of Lebanon where you are, was once known as the Paris of the Middle East. But today the city faces a very different reality, doesn't it? Caught up in this widening conflict between Israel and Hezbollah.
Well, Beirut has always been and still is a cultural hub in the Arabic world. And as we see, the colonial powers have always wanted to destroy the Arab financial, political, and cultural capitals, meaning we're talking about Damascus, Baghdad, Cairo, Algiers, Beirut, Sana'a. These are targets for destruction because the West and the Zionists with them want to build a new Arab, a new Muslim that is molded in the shape that the West and the empire wants. And that is in those glass towers in the desert that never were the capitals of culture, finance, or political power in the Arabic region. And this is why Beirut is always a target, because it is a cultural icon and hub for cultural production in the Arabic world. It has to be crushed by the West and by the Zionists, so we can watch some Qatari music or Qatari production that does not convey the national cohesion feeling of the Arabic people that Beirut would.
While the diplomacy is continuing, the US Secretary of State Antony Blinken meeting Arab leaders in London, including the Lebanese Prime Minister, to try to de-escalate the conflict. Are you hopeful?
No, I'm not hopeful. There will be no de-escalation. In fact, as we're speaking right now, there's 10 American fuel jet carriers flying from Europe towards the region, which means, of course, that is to supply the Israeli jets that may be attacking Iran at any moment. The reality, it will be basically an attack by the United States with even the American jets that are going to be flying to conduct this attack on Iran will be probably having some fresh paint on their tails of Israeli flags. So we are heading to a regional war. And the United States wants this regional war, and it's going to happen before the American election. In the next few days, it will be launched. The idea is that whoever will be elected will continue the war no matter what. And that's what we will see. And I think our brothers and sisters in Africa should prepare because this war will affect everything on this planet, all trade, all oil and gas supplies, and much more. And countries in Africa, Asia, and Latin America will feel this. Of course, Europe will feel this effect of this war. In general, anytime you hear the Americans talk about ceasefire or negotiations, then you should expect a big hit to come. And that's what the pattern has been for a week now, for a year now, since the beginning of the genocide in Gaza. And if we look at the history of the European colonialism, nobody should ever trust a word coming from a European capital.
Well, I mean, given your rather dark prognosis there, what is the mood amongst ordinary Lebanese people following these Israeli attacks? Are people questioning why the world appears to be allowing these attacks to happen without sanction?
Well, it's clear that the international law system and the international bodies that were created to govern that system at the end of World War II have now collapsed. So we are in a moment right now that there is no international law, as we see health professionals, journalists, children, women. Everybody is a legitimate target, and we've seen every breach of every possible international law that was written since the World War II. And so we are in a situation that the only thing that will right the future is what people do on the ground. And as we see, the Lebanese resistance has been meeting a crushing defeat on the invading Zionist forces. It's now almost 25 days, and they have not been able to enter an inch in Lebanese territory without being bombarded. This is what we see right now is the total collapse of the Israeli military. And when the Americans have to engage directly in this war, and they are engaged directly in this war, that means Israel is already defeated. The question that we all should be asking ourselves in Africa, Asia, and so on is that will the United States go to a full world war to maintain the supremacy that they have over humanity? Or will they accept a multipolar world that is emerging, as we saw also on your news, the BRICS meeting convening right now? So, and if the United States is unwilling to accept equality, and with it Europe and the Zionist colony, if they don't want to accept equality with other human beings, if they want to maintain this idea that they have a chosen people or a manifest destiny, or that their quote-unquote race is above others and has the right to police humanity and force culture on others, then we are going to a world war.
Well, on that rather dire note, I want to thank you very much indeed and to ask you to stay safe. Mr. Laith Marouf is a journalist. He was talking to me there on the line from Beirut. Thank you very much indeed for joining us.